Hey guys, this video is about how the labs are set up for the online Chemistry 102 course this semester. So when you guys log on to the course through Canvas, you come to this page, and I have a video about the syllabus and about how the rest of the course is set up, so you should look at those too. But if you come down here to, well actually let's look here at the syllabus module first. In here, I have a link to how to write a lab report. So that's going to be really useful to you. But basically what happens is, in the laboratories module, you will have a link to a video, and that's a video of me explaining and demonstrating the experiment. Then a link to my write-up of the lab, and then a link to student data. So you'll, when you click on that, you'll see you'll find your name, you'll look at your data. We'll look at all this in a minute. But when you, okay, so let's open this first. When you look at my write-up here, this is, by the way, is the page where you guys are going to turn in the lab reports. When you finish writing up your lab report, you save it as PDF and submit it through here. But when you click on this link, this is my write-up. And so there's an introduction. You should read through that. Now, it reads like you're going to actually do something, but that's because I wrote all these experiments for when we were, able to actually go into lab and do the stuff. You do not need any equipment. You'll not be doing actually any experiments, unfortunately. But there's an introduction. There's some good information in here. You should read this for sure. And particularly when you go back to do your write-up, you should look back in here because it'll have some good information to help you do your calculations usually. Then I have a procedure, okay? So this is the procedure I wrote. And this, along with the video, is where you guys are going to get your procedure that you're going to write, which we'll see in a minute, okay? But first thing, this is really important because I see this sometimes in the beginning of the semester. You are not allowed to cut and paste my procedure or to copy mine verbatim. The basic idea is you take this information as well as the video and you write your own procedure in your own words, and it has to, this is important, it has to be in either outline or flowchart format. And we'll get back to that. But then I have, my procedure. So what you guys should do is, as you're watching the video, which we'll look at in a second, you should have this open in another window or maybe print it out and follow through and take notes, because that's how you're going to write a really good procedure. Then I have a calculations section in here which tells you what I want you to calculate. Now, I don't tell you how to calculate anything. A lot of that stuff is in the introduction section up here at the top of the lab. So like this stuff right here, or it's something that you should know from the lecture. And then I tell you what goes in the conclusion. So the first thing to remember about the conclusion is double check, guys. Make sure that you put everything in there that I asked for, because if you don't, then you're going to lose points. The other thing that my conclusion helps you with is figuring out what your purpose in your write-up is. All right, so that's that. So have that somewhere open or printed out or something. Click on the video link and take notes. Okay, so there's we're not going to watch it now, but that is me explaining and demonstrating the lab that you would do if we were actually able to go into the lab. So take notes, okay, and that's how you're going to write up your procedure. All right, so let's go back up here and look at how to write a lab report. So the first thing that I have here is I tell you everything that has to go in the lab report. So double check and make sure that you have everything that's in here. Your name and section number at the top. The title is the same as I call it on Canvas, so freezing point depression for the first one. Purpose, okay, so here it says where you state the question or questions that you're trying to find out. One sentence for each question is normally sufficient. And if you're not sure what the purpose is, one place you can always find that is if you go in and look at what I asked for in the conclusion. That's always the purpose of the experiment, is to find what I ask you to write in the conclusion. So that should make that a little easier. Now the procedure. So in your own words, that's important. outline or flowchart form only. That's important. Most people do outline. If you know how to make a flowchart, that works too. And normally, what would happen is if we were on campus doing the experiment, that's the procedure that you would follow as you do the experiment. But you're still going to write it up. And the idea is that anybody should be able to take your procedure and successfully complete the experiment. And so where you get this information to do this is two places: the procedure that I wrote, as well as the video. Then set up a data table. All this is okay. It's in this order, by the way. So your lab report should have a title for each thing, except for your name. You just put your name and section number, but then the title. But then everything here. So write purpose and purpose, procedure, and so on. Now a data table. This should be an actual table. So insert table with rows and columns, with a space for every piece of raw data that normally you would get yourself in the lab, but this is data that I will give you, and I'll show you that in a minute. No calculations or the results of calculations, they don't go in here. This is just for raw data. Okay, so make sure you label each box. That's important too. Don't just have blank boxes with the numbers in there. You're going to need to put specifically what it is, mass of the unknown or whatever, and then the number that you get from, in this case, you get from me, and then the units, G for grams or whatever it is. Calculations. So I tell you what to calculate. Show all your work. Make sure you have units on every number, and keep track of sig figs all the way through. The way that I do it is in the middle of a calculation. If I don't want to round yet, I write the first insignificant figure as a subscript. That's really important. Make sure you guys do that, okay? Show all calculations. So if you do the same calculation for 3 different pieces of data, so you find the mass of the unknown for A, B, and C, I need to see all 3 of those, not just a sample calculation. This also is really important. You have to use an equation editor, proper formatting. It is not acceptable to just write it out by hand and then scan it or something like that. Use an equation editor, use subscripts, use superscripts where appropriate. Make it look professional, guys. Okay, and then after that comes the conclusion, and then basically make sure you put everything in here that I asked for in my write-up. So that's everything that goes in there. Double check that when you write your labs, guys. Make sure you get all that stuff in there. And then as you're writing each section, the purpose, the procedure, the data, write what that is. So write the word procedure before your procedure, for example. And so just to illustrate this, I made up a silly little lab. It's you're not going to do this, right, for sure. But so here I have this would be the procedure that I wrote, like I just showed you a few minutes ago. And so you can look at that. But that's basically giving you the information. You watch the video, write up your lab. These are, I tell you what goes in the calculations. I tell you what goes in the conclusion. So this is what, with that information here, that's what this lab report would look like, along with the data that you would be given. So this is the title right here, measuring the mass of unknown salt, your name, section number, word purpose, and then the purpose, 2 sentences. Procedure. Okay, so this, guys, is what I mean by an outline form. So I gave you this information up here in paragraph format. We took that and we converted it into our own words in outline format. Notice the indentations, the Roman numerals, and the A's, B's, and all like that, and then the further indentation. That's what I'm looking for. It is not a numbered list, so it's not just A, B, C, D, E like that, or step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is, these indentations are important. I'm looking for those. Next, the data table. So title data, it's an actual table, and there's different ways to label it, but mass of the empty beaker A, that many grams, and notice I have the units, G for grams, and so on. And then the calculations, we did 3 different simple subtractions, but we need to show all our work, so I showed all 3 subtractions. And then the average. So notice this is done with an equation editor, so make sure it looks professional. And then I calculated the standard deviation because we were asked to. And then the conclusion. So I gave the mass of each of the samples, the average mass, the standard deviation, Now, one of the things I usually ask for in the conclusion is a source of possible experimental error, as well as the effect it would have on the result. And so read this, okay? I'm looking for something really, really specific. You know, it has to be an experimental error. Not don't talk about the calculations. That's not what we're talking about here. Has to be reasonable. Doesn't have to be one that you think actually happened, but it has to be reasonable. And follow the effect of that error through every step of the calculations. Okay, that's how you do well in this. Well, that's pretty much how the labs are going to work, guys. Good luck, and I'll be seeing you this semester.